All right, guys, welcome back to the Agent Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Caffarella. We're back with an exciting guest, a San Diego resident, Ashlee Chapman. Ashlee, how's it going today?
It's going good, Tom. How are you?
Good. I'm pretty good. We just talked kind of briefly in the pre-show, chat, and you've got a lot going on right now.
Yes, a lot of different things going on.
Yeah. So definitely impressed with some of the numbers, and we'll definitely get into some of that stuff. But can you give us a little bit of a background about like how you got into real estate, when you got in, why you got in, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I come from a background of car sales. When I was like 19, 20, I was selling cars in Seattle. Did well. I was sitting in the office one day, just like thinking about, doing real estate in Seattle. And then I thought, I freaking hate Seattle. It rains all the time. So I, I was a college dropout prior to that. And I just was like, I'm going to go do real estate in another state. So I moved to San Diego, sight unseen, and started out as an inside sales agent. So I was just cold calling 4, 6, 8 hours a day.
Yep.
And that's literally how I got into it. But I was cold calling foreclosures. So prior to me being licensed, I was just on the phone all day. And I didn't realize what the foreclosure market was going to teach me and how that was going to change my career. And it changed my life. It did, because that's something that not a lot of new agents learn about, like foreclosures, that sort of mentality with those clients. And so, I did some short sales. I've negotiated short sales for other agents, and that's how I got into it.
So when you moved to San Diego, did you already have the inside sales job lined up, or you moved there and then you were looking for a job?
Nope. I moved to San Diego without anything. No real estate courses. I had actually started the course, but I didn't finish it. And I was just, for a couple months, I was just like enjoying San Diego. I'd saved money from selling cars, which can be really, really fruitful for you.
Yeah.
So, it was literally just like all right, cool. I want to get into real estate. I should get a job as an assistant. And then I actually got recruited on Indeed through my resume from my sales background for inside sales.
Cool. So were you working for a brokerage doing inside sales? Were you working for an investment company? Who were you doing inside sales for?
So I started out doing inside sales with the Home Company, a small brokerage in San Diego, with Christian Peter. And I was cold calling in San Diego and in the Bay Area for one of our partner agents, who is Hans Struzina. He actually, super amazing guy. I would cold call for him in that market, foreclosures, and set appointments, and in San Diego too. So I had it like divvied up, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would call the Bay Area. Tuesday, Thursday, I would call San Diego.
Okay, good deal.
Mhm.
So you were working for both of them kind of at the same time. And so now when you were, I'm assuming that they were going after, you said foreclosures, that were they going specifically short sales? Like what types of people were they kind of looking for?
Yeah, it was just foreclosures. So it could be a purchase or it could be a listing, but the majority of the deals were short sales. So um, a different realm to start out in. I thought when I first started, I got lucky, signed a contract within the first couple weeks of me cold calling. So I thought, okay, this is really easy. Little did I know it was going to get really hard. So yeah, just foreclosures, a lot of short sales, and that's kind of what opened up the doors to the distressed market and flipping, wholesaling, and all that stuff.
So, a lot of agents, listen to the show and, a lot of them do a lot of calling. So for you, like when you were doing that job, like how many hours a day were you on the phone? And then what were you trying to kind of achieve on a day-to-day basis when you were making those phone calls? Or what did they want you to achieve like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so this is super important for agents out there. I think that, I mean, I was hitting about a 10% contact ratio, setting 5 to 7 appointments a week. I was on the phone 4, 6, 8 hours a day.
Yep.
For the first 90 days, I was really hitting it hard. So there was no room for error. When I first started, I thought 5 appointments a week, that's a lot. Like, there's no way. There are only so many foreclosures. You know, at that point in 2017, the foreclosures were kind of like non-existent. People were like, "Oh, you're calling foreclosures? Why?" And I learned really quickly it was because nobody else was.
Mhm.
So, you know, out of 100 contacts, 100 conversations, if I wasn't setting 10 appointments, then I was not doing my job.
Mhm.
Um, and I was held to that standard, and I still go off of that, 5 to 7 appointments a week. If you have a 10% contact ratio and you talk to 10 people in a day, you should be setting 1 to 2 appointments. So that was my baseline. And then those other people that I would chat with, they just go right into your sales funnel.
And so, like, what was, I guess, the pitch? I mean, so obviously, when you're calling or you're mailing or you're doing anything marketing based, like, that's a very specific niche of people that are behind on their mortgage. What were you leading in with on those people?
So originally when I started, I had a script that was like, hey, this is Ashley calling about the trustee sale date that's posted on the property.
Hmm.
And that script was the same script that everybody calling before I was using. Or they were using something that was tailored around trustee sale date.
Hmm.
So I quit using it probably like 4 or 5 months in. I quit using it. I mean, we had some deals, but I wasn't doing as well as I wanted to be. And so I changed my script from that to, hey, this is Ashley. Do you remember me? And it kind of like knocks people back, and they're like, oh my gosh, because there were a bunch of people calling them. But they weren't offering any value. So, it was I figured out, so they're getting so many phone calls, of course they're gonna be like, oh shoot, I don't know if I remember you.
Hmm.
So that's what I would use. And then I would just go, you know what, just want to touch base with you on 123 Main Street. What is the situation with that property? Have you solved any issues with it?
Hmm.
And then it just opened up the floodgates for the story and what was going on. And oh, yeah. And, I would have 30-minute conversations with people who spilled their entire life to me,
Hmm.
just using very simple language. And a lot of that changed for me when I read the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That changed my game immensely.
So
And
I've heard people mention that book a million times. What's the premise?
really,
Because I don't know it.
okay. So really the whole idea, and the biggest takeaway from that book, I think, and I can't stress this enough, is mirroring and matching people, their tone, what they say, and repeating words that they say. So if you tell me, oh yeah, well, I don't think I'm really interested in selling for a couple months. Okay, great. What about what's going to happen in the next couple months that's going to change for you? Okay, so I pull out keywords that they say and repeat it back to them in a question that they then it's super open ended, right? So it brings conversation, not yes or no answers.
Mhm.
And that is the biggest thing that I think when you're on the phones that you have to understand. These people don't know you, so you have to pull the information out of them.
So now you talked about the fact that you were doing it for a few months and then you kind of changed some of your scripting and your strategy. How long, because a lot of people talk about, using the phone to generate opportunities in business. How long did it take for you both to get comfortable with doing a lot of calling and then to actually see the results? Like, did you get the results right away or did it take a while to build up?
No, I got a contract right away. But it took me a while after that because you get so defeated. Initially, I had never cold called before. I when in car sales, people are walking and they're standing right in front of you. If you can't close somebody that's right in front of you, there's a problem.
Yep.
So, with cold calling, it's a little bit, it's cold, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, I would say it did. I mean, it took me a couple months. I mean, probably after 6 months, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. All right. This freaking light bulb went off in my head where I was just like, I understand these people. I understood the foreclosure process by that point. I had to figure a lot of stuff out. Um, I had no idea what a foreclosure was prior to that. So, I was literally in the dark for a while. So, I mean, it just hit me one day. I was like, I freaking love prospecting and I'm going to get 5 appointments today.
Mhm.
And that mindset shift changed my trajectory in business.
Yeah, I love what you said. A couple of points that I want to just kind of elaborate on really quickly for the audience. And I see this all the time. I've got a brokerage, I've got 350 agents, and I talk to agents all the time about both investing and growing a traditional business. And people think that you're going to have success with calling right away. But like you just
Mhm.
said, I mean, you're talking about doing it as an ISA. So you were getting paid to have 4 or 5 hours of conversations every single day. And with all of that volume, it took you 6 months to get comfortable,
Mhm.
and to get the results that you wanted, because you needed to learn the scripts, you needed to learn the industry, you needed to learn so much. So it's definitely something with any lead gen strategy, whether it's investing or on the aging side, it's a commitment to getting really good. So
Oh,
yeah,
yes. I think I just, yeah, I agree. And I also think the fact is like you have to start doing it to get good at it.
yep,
So many, so
100%.
many, so many people are so afraid to start. And I was like, holy crap, if I really want to do this, I guess this is what people do. They cold call. I had no idea of the other avenues of business. I didn't do an open house for like 2 years into my career. So that was like, people are just scared of rejection, so they don't start. You have to start. You have to get on the phone. You have to mess up. And you have to get comfortable with yourself messing up. And you have to get in front of people. It's repetition.
So now you were looking to set 5 appointments in a week from basically calling like all day. Obviously, even as an ISA, you can't call for 8 straight hours. So you're calling for as much as you can, 5 days a week, trying to set an appointment a day. What would just so people understand, like what were they looking for in terms of the conversion of how many appointments you gave to a contract? Do you have any idea on that?
Yeah, the majority of it was like 1 to 2 of those appointments should convert. So we were going for 4 contracts a month. Ultimately, that was the end goal.
And were
And
they relying, their specific business relying on just you to basically be like, were they doing any other types of marketing, or is it just you calling?
at the time, not really.
Yeah.
So at the time, that's what they had built their entire business around was ISA,
Yep.
cold callers. And so it was a really, really small team. I was the only cold caller, and then we had an admin, and then we had two agents, aside from Hans up in the Bay Area. So it was really, really small. And had it been a little bit bigger, I mean, if you're running a team of 5, 6, 7 ISAs, you're doing really well. So, uh, you know, it was their entire business model, I would say.
Yeah. Awesome. So you were kind of the first one in.
Yeah.
Cool. So obviously, and you now, are you doing investing now yourself, right?
Hmm.
So kind of bridge the gap between, you went to San Diego, just wanted to get out of the cold weather. I'm right now in April. It's a snowstorm outside. I'm in Boston, so I totally get that feeling right now.
Yeah.
So you moved to San Diego for the weather. You got
Hmm.
hired as an ISA. You figured that piece out. How long did you stay as an ISA before starting to, peel off and do your own things?
So I was an ISA until for almost a year, got my license, did some agent stuff, negotiated some short sales, and I would still consider myself an ISA.
Yep.
right? We are lead generators,
Yep.
whether there's somebody else doing it for you or not, which now I do have cold callers that call for me. But regardless, you are always going to be an ISA. I think people use that term as like a, I don't want to say less than, that's not the right word, but you're an ISA is somebody that's my forever title. You know, I will forever cold call. I enjoy it. I love it. It gets deals. I now, you know, you get so good on the phone. It's like, boom, I jump on the phone. I know I'm going to get a deal. Right. So, um, you're always an ISA. The transition from ISA to agent to investor, they're all the same, you know?
Yeah. Well, you've got to get that first line, right? Like you've got to get somebody, you've got to get in somebody's house to start.
Yeah.
There's no other way to get business unless you're getting face to face. And it's just a matter then of how you're getting face to face. And there's so many ways you can do it. I mean, calling is great because there's no cost to it. So when people like I flip like 120, 150 houses a year, so I'm very, very active. And people
Mm-hmm.
say, well, how do you do so many? I've got a huge marketing budget. So I do a bunch of mailers, pay-per-click, Facebook, all that good stuff. And then, you know, I tell people how much it costs me to get a deal. It's very expensive. And so like for newer people, there's a lot of strategies like you're talking about that are free that don't cost almost anything. I mean, it's minimal. You know, if you're getting a dialing software, you're buying a list and you're putting in your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and there's not a lot of startup. So I agree with you. You've got to get business in the door. So are you still actively calling today? And do you have anybody else that's doing it with you, or do you just self-generate like every deal that you're doing right now?
I still call. I mean, I have some people that I've been following up since when I first started as an ISA. You know, I know that they're going to turn into a purchase and or a listing or whatever it may be at some point. So I do keep really close tabs on those people.
Mhm.
I work in a very interesting situation. So I'm kind of like a partner agent to the Middleton Group. One of my partners that I work with, Luke, he has a real estate team. So I funnel deals to them when I don't want to do them and just kind of take a rip off of it. And then I work with a big investor here in town that I'm training their ISA team at 8 o'clock this morning. I was in. We identify objections, discuss them, and solve them every Friday at 8 or 9 a.m. to get better.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say that, you know, I cold call this time every week. I try to at least a couple hours a week still because I love it. But you know, I try to get, I think the cool thing about cold calling is you want to develop somebody who is as good as you, if not way better,
Mhm.
that can be more successful. So I think that's like the whole point now is like with Marina and John, they're cold calling for us right now. And I'm like, you know, if I can make them better than I am at it, and I know that I'm pretty good, then that is like the ultimate success because they're going to bring in business forever.
So obviously, you know, hitting the phones every day, you know, it takes discipline. It takes the right mindset. How do you keep yourself and how did you keep yourself like in the game every single day and keep, you know, pushing forward even when people were mean to you or rude to you or hung up in your face and all that good stuff?
Oh, it's I think you have to be resilient. You have to realize that these people's lives, they have more going on in their life than you need to care about a commission check and or making 100 grand on a flip.
Mhm.
These people and the people that I prospect, you know, if it's a bad day, like, you know what, it sounds like it was a really bad time, is tomorrow morning or afternoon better for you to chat? So you have to be of the mindset that not every single person is going to love you. I don't really care if you're the most lovable person out there. It's a grind. And you just have to know that this isn't the only thing that's going on in their lives. People really don't sell houses that often, right? So you need to understand that and be aware and realize that it's not you, it's probably something else,
Mhm.
and follow up, because the money is actually in the follow up game. Um, uh, that's it. I mean, it really is. You can make appointments on the first phone call. I've done it. I've closed deals on the first appointment, first phone call, and I've done it several times. But there are those couple that I will close eventually that are in my follow up, and they hated me when I first called them. So
Yep.
it's just, you know what? It's kind of like a suck it up thing. Like, I don't care about the excuse, and if you beat yourself up too much, then you're letting work take over your life. But if this is something that you truly want to do, let it go.
Yeah. So now people always ask all the time when it comes to calling, like, who should I call? And so obviously, like, you've got something that's working. What's working for you? And, what would you recommend for somebody that's out there looking for investment deals and listings and stuff like that?
Oh, I would recommend so many things. I love calling 90-day lates. They're not a notice of default yet, um, but they need to do something. And typically in that stage, they are trying to do something quickly. So I love 90-day lates. Unemployment, um, code violations are huge. I've always gotten deals from code violation lists. Dealing with the city sucks, but it's worth it. um, Vacants, tax liens are pretty big. I mean, you can run a list just for tax liens over a certain amount, So if it's like $1,000 that's recorded, probably not super good. But if it's 5, 10, 15, 20 grand in tax liens, that's a good list. I mean, there's so many. I kind of stray away from NODs now, unless they have equity, because I don't want to do a ton of short sales. I actually have 2 short sales I'm negotiating right now. Not my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So, I want to find the deals that have equity. Empty nesters, that's a good one. But all of them, I mean, just distressed in general, water shutoffs, anything.
And how are you obtaining the list?
Title. My title rep is the man. I mean, he and I chat probably once a week, and it's like, "Hey, I need to figure out how to get this."
Mhm.
And, we'll just think about things. I mean, I've mobile home parks. I mean, there's so many different avenues. If he can't get it for me, he'll point me in the direction of a resource that can. And then I skip trace everything myself. So in order to get reliable data. So, but I think agents and investors, they don't realize how big their title rep is, how much leverage that they have using a good title rep, and where they have in their back pocket as a resource.
Yeah. So what are you currently working on, and what are you looking to do in the next year or 2 years or 3 years, kind of moving forward?
Oh boy. Um, right now I'm working on stacking capital, uh, because I think the inevitable is going to happen. We don't have like an idea of where the market's going to go, but I think inflation is setting in pretty obviously. So I'm gearing up for the time that the market does change, and I won't be investing in the San Diego market specifically, but I'll probably be investing out of state, using cash to buy.
Mhm.
So that's what it looks like for me. And then also, I'm working on development opportunities and syndication. So raising capital, things like that. Um, Bigger deals. I don't really care about being a real estate agent too much. So, if I didn't do any deals a year as a realtor, I would be fine.
But you are though, right? You just said you were taking on a bunch, right?
Yeah, so I did. I did just get 30 listings with from one of my investors on
Yeah.
30 condos they're flipping, but I actually brought those in for my teammates. So,
What?
you
I'm
know,
sorry.
I brought those in for my teammates.
Yeah.
So they'll be taking those on, and it gives them big exposure and huge opportunity in the traditional agent side, which is what they like to do, and it keeps me in the investment side.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you mentioned that you wouldn't be investing in San Diego. Why?
Well, the appreciation is great. I think if you're flipping, obviously it makes a lot of sense. But for buy and holds, and some of the opportunities that are going to present themselves in Texas, Florida, Alabama, some of those areas, big multi-units that are still, 5, 6, 7 caps. That's when you can pay cash for stuff like that, I think you're doing really well on the cash flow front. So that's kind of my game plan. And then just leveraging property like that. San Diego is great. The rents are high here, but the taxes aren't exciting. So
Yeah. Do you have any specific states in mind that you're thinking about, or you're not sure yet?
yeah, I think Florida is a big one. Florida, Tampa area, stuff like that. Texas, San Antonio is very similar to San Diego, just not with the price tag. And probably, yeah. I mean, those two states are really, really in my vision right now, just simply for the opportunity there. I want to be able to buy cash, not, here, the San Diego market is good. A huge opportunity to buy and hold, and your appreciation is going to be insane. But I'd rather flip houses here and buy and hold elsewhere.
Yeah, we see that a lot. I mean, I'm in Boston. I do the same thing. A lot of people on the coast where the margins, it's interesting because in a lot of areas that are high price, the flipping margins are big, but then the buy and hold, it's almost impossible in some areas to even buy and hold. So a lot of times, people take their money into other states where the numbers look a little bit different. And we see a lot of that, people putting their money in Texas and Florida and Midwest states for more buy and hold purposes.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of agents that tune in, and it's interesting because you've gone so far down the investing path to where you're giving up your listings, and we have agents that are listening that like have never done an investing deal. They want to do an investing deal, but maybe they're scared or they don't know what to do next and everything like that. What has made you? What is the benefit of investing that you've gotten that has made you say like, I don't even want to take listings anymore?
Yeah, the biggest benefit to investing is the creative side to it, the challenge. There's always a way to get a deal done. When you take a listing, you are in control of the deal somewhat. You're kind of at the client's mercy. But when you are the buyer, you have all the control in the world, right?
Yep.
In the state of California, seller can't unilaterally cancel. So ultimately, it's really just thinking outside the box. And I also too, I think when an agent gets a deal as their first investment and they see the opportunity with the check that they make at the end of it, whether it's a flip or a wholesale deal. And so even if I take $1 million listing, I could care less about that commission, right? I'm like, okay, 30 grand, not terrible, but I could go out and make 100 grand off of one deal.
Yeah.
So I think it's, people are always so worried about their image and their track record. You get to a point where you don't care about that. You care about impacting people in a positive way and changing their lives through real estate investing, because it is a tangible asset and it is very secure. So I think it's a decision that somebody has to make. Do you want to chase a commission or do you want to do something bigger?
Yeah. No, I know. I agree. I mean, it's like, for both of those things, I think you've got the buy and hold side, and then you've got the fix and flip side. On the fix and flip side, and like you had mentioned, the average, listing isn't $1 million. So, the average listing, you are making $5, $8, $10,000, and you are not necessarily adding a zero to the end, but you might be like 5 timesing it on the investing side. And it's not uncommon for people to make more doing one fix and flip than an agent makes selling homes the entire year. And then
Yep.
with the buy and hold side, I mean, it's like, as an agent, how else are you going to, build a retirement? I mean,
Hmm.
how are you going to get passive income and all that good stuff? And I like the fact that you mentioned, that you're going out of state. My brokerage is in Boston, and it's tough. It's tough to cash
Hmm.
flow anywhere near here, but there are alternatives to go into other states that are a little bit more both landlord friendly and cash flow friendly. And like you mentioned, stacking money. You can buy a single family cash in a market that's a little bit lower. That's not a San Diego. That's not a Boston. That's not a New York City. Stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
to wrap, what's the biggest piece of advice that you could give to somebody that's listening right now? Like everything that you've done, and everything, your experiences, like what would you say your number one investing tip is?
Get started. Number one thing, I can't emphasize it enough. I talk to people every day who just want to do it. And I don't like hearing about people who want to do it. I
Yeah,
like to see people who do it.
yeah,
Okay? So, you're only as good as what you put yourself out there for. And if you're not putting yourself out there and just starting, you never get the deal.
yeah.
So, it's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that. Like I always tell people the story. Like it took me 3 years to do my first deal, and like every single day I was like, oh, I'm going to be an investor. I'm investing, whatever. And like I got to the point where I think I was like said to myself, like either you're going to do it or you're just going to be talking forever. And then
Mhm.
I think once you do your first deal, like you don't look back, because even the people who, most deals, as long as you're being, you're doing things the right way, you're going to do
Mhm.
well. But even if you don't, you almost feel better doing it and not doing that great than not taking action at all, because you learn from your mistakes, and
Mhm.
you've got to get the ball rolling. So
Mhm.
Ashlee, I want to, thank you for coming on. Definitely very jealous that you're in San Diego right now. And like I said, I'm looking out my window right now and it's snowing in mid-April. So it's crazy, but you made the right move getting into a warm climate. So congratulations on that and all your success.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. And we'll definitely have to chat offline.
Sounds good. All right, guys, we'll be back next week for another edition of the Agent Investor Podcast with great guests, and we'll see you next week.